And we are live and in charge and recording. We are with the man, the myth, the legend, my brother Elliot, for another episode of Sound Off. Today, the topic, you see it, from homeless veteran to R&B recording artist. You may see things, you may have heard the music, you may have heard of the man, you may have seen his work, you may have seen him in the opening of a game singing, dressed up, looking smooth and spiffy, or hanging out with us on Friday Night Live. But today, we want to have a conversation to really talk about the journey of what you don't know. If you're seeing this, we ask, feel free to comment below. Let us know your branch of service. Let us know the time you serve. Any questions you have, so we can go ahead and get back to you and have that conversation. Elliot, thank you for taking some time at this early morning to hang out with me, my brother.
Hey, I'm used to it. You know, the whole Marine Corps thing. You know, veterans, you get it. Wake up at the crack of dawn, wait for nothing. So,
Look, it's
this is definitely important.
Old Dark 30, stand by to stand by. Be like, but first sergeant, movements at 9. It don't matter. You gotta be there an hour and a half for the platoon sergeant. I'm a platoon sergeant. We don't move till 9. Why is it 7:30? Well, guess what? The squad leader wants me there by 5. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, you're like there at like 03 and the marches until the like 09.
Nope, because everybody has to make sure they're ready for the next person that shows up. So it's squad leader to the platoon leader to the first sergeant, then the LT shows up late.
You end up just standing there for like 4 hours.
Yeah, for the 5th time. So how's everybody doing? Tired. We's tired.
Right.
We could have done this 5 hours ago. We'd have been done this whole damn ruck march. For those that don't know, brother, tell us a little about yourself. Tell us your branch of service, when you were in, what your job was, and we'll kind of pick it up from there.
So I had the honor of serving in the Marine Corps. So while I was in the Marine Corps, I had 2 MOSs. My primary MOS was 0311 Rifleman, and then my B billet, or my secondary MOS, was 8152, which is Security Forces. So I had a couple of different jobs within each. So I first went to Security Forces. Within Security Forces, I was first part of what's called the FAST team. FAST is an acronym, FAST, Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team. So basically, in a nutshell, I like to call it like a Marine Corps version of a SWAT team. So FAST teams are the teams that the Marine Corps sends into like embassies or buildings overseas that are owned by U.S. government, to take them back. Like back when, I think it was a few years ago, when there was an embassy in Iraq that was under siege, they sent in FAST Marines to get that back. So I was part of FAST for 6 months. I did that, and then I got sent over to Washington, D.C. to be a part of what's called Presidential Support Duty. Presidential Support Duty is about 1% of all Marines are selected to go help guard the President of the United States at the White House, at the Presidential Retreat, at a few other locations. I had the honor of being one of those Marines for about a year and a half. And then from there, I got sent to Camp Pendleton out here in California, and I was part of 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, and I was an 0311 Rifleman, or just basically your infantry rifleman. In the Army, it's like the equivalent to an 11 Bravo. And I did that for the rest of my tour until I got out in 2007. With that unit, I went to Okinawa, Japan in 2006, Iraq in 2005 in Ramadi. And then I also was part of operations. So after we got back from Iraq, I got put into the operations shop, which is like a department for civilians that might be watching, where we were in charge of all the training missions and all the operations for the battalion. And then that's when I got out. So I had a few different things that I experienced while I was there as well.
Okay, interesting. So a lot of things. So let's break it down. We could spend time in each specific one. Ramadi is just a whole different conversation in and of itself.
Oh yeah.
It's going to the presidential detail. I think that's pretty interesting. What administration was that? Was Bush? Bush. Yeah, right before. Yeah, so you were there for Bush. That was before 2007. Interesting. So you had a wide range of things, and I like the fact that you kind of compared it to the everyday Marine, right? In a sense, like not taking away from it, rather, but the fact that you did different things, right? You weren't just infantry doing that kind of work. You did do different things. You were exposed to a variety of stuff, high profile positions to say the least. Did you ever think before service? Well, rewind. What made you want to go into the Marine Corps?
A couple of different things. Honestly, um, I didn't really do too well in high school, so I knew that college probably wasn't the best fit for me when I graduated high school. Plus, I had no direction. I wasn't one of those kids that got lucky enough to like, okay, I know exactly what I want to do with my life after I graduate high school. I had no idea. I knew a few things about me, but I didn't have like a specific direction that I wanted to go in. And so I figured, okay, I could join the military that will, one, do something that's honorable for the country, for my family, make my friends and my family proud, make the country proud. Two, it's a job. It's something that I can get a paycheck from. Three, I knew that I wanted to join the Marine Corps at a young age because when I was probably seventh, eighth grade, I saw one of those really good marketing commercials for the Marine Corps, the one with the dragon and the guy on the bridge, and it caught my attention. And I was like, wow, okay. So I knew going early on that I wanted to join the Marine Corps if I didn't have any other plans. And so I joined for those reasons because it gave me a whole bunch of different things. It gave me the dream of becoming a Marine. It gave me a job. It gave me something to be proud of. And then it also bought me time, because I knew that going into the military, you have to sign a contract for 4 to 6 years or whatever the different branches, their terms are. And so I was like, okay, it'll give me all those things. And I can use that time that I'm in the military to kind of figure myself out, see if there's a different direction I want to go in, or if I want to just join the military and stay in the military.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up out here in Cerritos, California, which is in Southern California, I want to say about 30 miles away from Los Angeles.
Okay, was that like a city? Is that a little more urban? What's the makeup where you grew up?
It's like a suburb of LA, so
Okay.
it's kind of like a suburban area, but it's not like super crowded and like tall buildings like LA. It's more of like a regular neighborhood.
Gotcha. How would you kind of summarize life before service? We kind of talked a little about high school, maybe not, direction still pending. How was your upbringing up to the point of going into service before all that?
I actually was really, really blessed growing up. So I was born addicted to drugs. My blood parents were both drug addicts and alcoholics. I was put into foster care when I was born, pretty much right out of the hospital. And I was in foster care for 8 months, and I was adopted by an amazing single mother who not only adopted myself, but she also adopted 2 other kids. So my older sister was at the top, and then the middle child was my older brother, and then there was me. So all 3 of us were adopted by a single mother. She couldn't have kids biologically herself, naturally, so she adopted 3 kids, the 3 of us. And I was raised in a mixed family. So I was the only black person in my family. My mom was white, my sister's mixed, my brother's mixed, and then I'm mixed myself. And we were raised in an area, Cerritos, where everything was really mixed. I didn't have friends of one race. I didn't have friends of one culture. I had black friends, white friends, Indian friends, Asian friends, friends of all different types of cultures. And so I was blessed in the fact that I got to experience that. I got to experience different cultures. I got to experience different religions. I got to experience gay people, straight people, bi people. There were everything. My high school, statistically, when I grew up, was actually the most ethnically diverse high school in the country, which was something that we actually were very proud of because of the fact that all the kids in the school, we had that experience where I didn't see color lines growing up as a kid. And so I feel like I'm blessed in that way because now as an adult, I don't see color. I just see who the person is behind their skin. And so I had a good upbringing in the fact that my mom gave me a life that I probably would have never had without her. We were raised in a good middle class family. So we were never starving. We were never worried about where the next meal was coming from. My mom raised all 3 of us as an LVN and on the salary of a nurse. And we were good. The 3 of us were taken care of. She raised us in a very well-rounded way that educated us, taught us how to be good people. And she was very loving. And so my upbringing was, in my opinion, very, very solid and something that I'm very proud of to this day. And me and my mom have a great relationship, and we always will.
You said something in there to the effect of being born addicted. Obviously, there was a period of time where that, you're medically cleared and cleaned and all that good stuff that happens there. Fast forward, you know what I mean, because we'll get into kind of life after service, but I think it really starts to tell a lot of, you know, key pieces for people, right? Folks wouldn't know, you know, hey, off the bat, you already started life, you know, kind of, you know, at a deficit, right, in a negative, but still, right, you know, shout out obviously to all the families out there, actually, you know, foster families, foster moms, for your mom to do something like that, not only for you but for two other children. It's powerful. You know, you don't see a lot of that, especially nowadays. You know, there's obviously debates and conversations about, you know, foster families and things like that, but really for someone to stand up and be able to say, hey, I'll step in and I'll be that for you, to your point, I think it is a blessing, you know. And also seeing her in her job, you know, doing what she did in the service field, right? It's a life of service, really, in so many ways. Obviously that has had a great impact on you, I assume.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my upbringing not only made me who I am, but it molded a large part of my identity as a person. You know, now me, I mean, I'm mixed. I'm half black and half white. But especially with the military, you know, and all the veterans and all the military people watching might know, going into the military, you don't see color, you don't see any of that stuff, and so I'm just a human, you know, and that's part of my upbringing, but also part of being in the military, being surrounded by so many different types of people.
And I think that's very powerful. So, you know, there's that, fast forward now, that kind of gives us some context into your life, and you served. Amazing service. You got to do some amazing things. And then the time comes where service is done. Right, literally in a blink of an eye. Right, it's like, you know, I saw a commercial. I'm gonna join. Hey, mom. Everybody's like, oh my goodness. Some support it. Some are like, are you sure? You know, the whole pre-service, you know, conversations that happen within our circles, and literally in the blink of an eye, you got a 214, right? Just like that. So take me to now that point where you have your 214. You know, it's all in the rearview mirror, and you're going forward now. What's going on in your head at that time? What's life like for you as you begin to adjust into whatever the next chapter looks like?
When I got out, I had no idea that I had PTSD. I went to Iraq in 2005, and as I later learned in life, sometimes PTSD can stay dormant in the brain, kind of like a dormant volcano that's waiting to explode later on in life. That's exactly how my PTSD acted. It was quiet for a few years. I got out in 2005 from Iraq, got out of the Marine Corps in 2007, but between 2005 to 2007, I seemed okay. There were no symptoms. I was still in the Marines. I was going to work like normal, but then something happened in 2007. I have no idea what it was to this day, and that volcano exploded. And so when I first got out, I was kind of in a place where I sort of had more direction. I had done music. I knew that I wanted to start doing music. I had gotten out of the Marine Corps early to pursue that dream, but that dream was sidelined hard when I had an episode that happened at home, and PTSD pretty much started taking over my life. And my life after service for the first number of years was rough. It was homelessness. It was in a 5150 ward. It was in handcuffs. It was having issues with family and friends because of the PTSD. It was a pretty tough beginning to the civilian life after service.
And I think, and that's the reason why I think it's good to kind of go back and paint the story, because, you know, yes, you know, you were in foster home, but you had a loving family, you had a good upbringing. So, you know, so it's not, because sometimes, and we know, right, we have some folks will be like, oh no, that's prior to, like, no, check that. That's not what's going on here, because what happens at times for many veterans is they discredit things. And again, I'm not saying you cannot have a horrible childhood. You could have had a horrible childhood, you could have had trauma before, but that doesn't diminish the things that have happened in service, right? And I think to the point that happens for many veterans is to your point specifically, you serve, but what happens is like that saying, right? An idle mind is the devil's playground. And the fact of the matter is, there was really no reason for that volcano to kind of erupt, because you were still going through the motions, right? You're still getting up, you're PTing, like we joked about, it's dark 30, you're freaking waiting out there for formation, you're on the mule, you're doing this, all these things are happening, and you have a mission. You have something to do. So all those issues is like a rucksack. You just keep packing stuff in it. One of my therapists said that one time, which I thought was amazing, which is you're just
Yeah.
packing stuff in that rucksack and you don't realize it because you're moving. And
Yep.
then one day you stop moving. And all of a
Right.
sudden, when you stop moving, guess what? That rucksack full of shit, you start to smell it now because it's like, wait a second,
Yeah.
what is that? Like you don't realize it because
Yeah.
when you're moving, right, you're in the wind. You're just staying busy, your mind's occupied, and now all of a sudden you kind of stop. And this is a good point that I want to share with folks is, with talking with Vietnam veterans specifically and older veterans, they have one of the highest, especially those coming into retirement, suicide rates and mental health condition upticks because what's happened is exactly to your point, Elliot, what's happened to them. For many of them,
Right.
they went from service right into a job, right? They became what they became. They just stood busy, right? 20, 30
Right.
years killing it, and now you're retired. And now, 65-year-old Elliot's just sitting on the porch and now everything starts to come back like an avalanche. And
Right.
for the Vietnam guy, we talk about it, but it's like it's no different than you and I having this conversation in 20 years. Like, yo, 2007 was just yesterday, 2005 was just yesterday, but it's 2025.
Right.
2035, and it's like it's
Yeah.
all coming back to me. I'm like, yeah, because we stopped moving, and now your mind starts to process things, and
Yeah.
enter now the demon saying, knock knock, we've been here, let's have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that's a scary thing where you're like, yo, where did all this come from? I've been left, and that's where the hard part to put together of like, wait, what's going on here? Like, so you start, you spiral because you don't know what PTSD. You're not, immediately thinking PTSD. You're not thinking this. You're like,
Right.
what's wrong with me? And the lack of conversation tends to kill veterans sometimes psychologically because you don't know how to reference what's happening. What you know is you have no control now.
Yeah.
Pausing on that real quick, at what point did you begin to feel like music was something for you? Was that something from childhood? When did the love of music first surface in your life?
So it's funny you asked that because the first thing that comes to my mind was or is my mom buying me a snare drum when I was in fifth grade. And I can't remember why she did that because all the parents watching might know why in the world would you buy your son a snare drum, the
Nope.
loudest instrument in music? And we lived in a condo that shared walls with other condominiums.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, okay, well, my mom bought me a snare drum. Let's have fun with it.
Let's go.
Now looking back as an adult, if I was a parent, I'm like, why? I would never, unless we lived in a house and I didn't have to worry about neighbors freaking out about it. But yeah, my mom bought me a drum when I was in fifth grade, and that's when I started. That's when music started for me, and I started doing that. I was in a little elementary school, little wind band or whatever they called it, the little band in elementary school, junior high, and then in high school I was in marching band. I was in drumline for 3 years. We went all the way to the little international championships for high school drumlines at that time, and then that's when I joined the Marine Corps. And I thought music was done. I thought, okay, I'm done doing
Right.
music.
It was good.
So,
I did my thing there. I'm moving on
right.
now. Other things in life.
I also sang in gospel choir in high school as well. So that's when the singing kind of kicked in. And then like I said, joined the Marine Corps. I was like, all right, cool. Nice chapter in my life. Now I'm going to join the military and do this. So my focus was there. But music never seemed to fully leave me because I was one of those Marines who I would sing walking up and down the hallway at work, even out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we'd be bored, chilling, killing time, and I'd sing just out of boredom. And my friends in the Marines and the Marines that were around me were like, hey, he's got a good voice. This guy's a good singer.
Yeah.
And so
Call
my
him to
friends
call
would take
cadence.
notes. We would, yeah, exactly. So we would have conversations about it. We would talk about it. My friends that were close to me in my unit knew that I sang. So one day when we were in Okinawa in Iraq, or in Okinawa, Japan, my friend was like, hey, I know a guy who's stationed here in Oki, because with the Marine Corps, the way that you can get to Oki is one of two ways. You could either get stationed there for 2 years and it's like a full-time job while you're there, or it could be like a deployment for you where you're in an infantry unit and you get part of what's put on what's called a MU, a Marine Expeditionary Unit, and you're only there for like 6 months. And it's just a 6-month deployment, which is what I was doing. But one of my friends in my unit while we were out there, he knew a Marine that was there for his 2 years and he was there permanently. Um, and that Marine was a producer. And so he made beats and he knew him and he knew me. So he was like, I'm going to put you guys together it's a good fit. You're a singer, he's a producer, you guys can make music. I had never recorded a song. I had never done anything professionally as other than singing in gospel choir in high school, and that was it. That was my experience. And then singing to the radio in the car, singing up and down the hallways, things like that. So that experience ended up creating a lifelong thing for me because I ended up recording 2 albums while I was there with that producer who was another Marine in his barracks room. Funniest thing ever. So he had a laptop, he had a microphone, and he had like the recording software on his laptop in a wall locker in his barracks room. And that was our recording studio. And at the time, I had no idea because, it was my first time ever.
Right. It's like, hey, look, we're doing it.
I was like, oh, we're doing this. This is radio ready stuff. We're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
And now I still have that CD in my closet. I still have it to this day. But yeah, so music never left me. It started when I was in 5th grade when my mom bought me that drum, carried me through high school, and then it continued even when I was in the Marine Corps. And it carried me so much that I decided to actually get out of the Marine Corps slightly early. So I found out through one of my leaders while I was in my last year that I was in, that there was a program that the Marine Corps had where if you got accepted to a college, any kind of university, accredited university or school, you can get out of the military or the Marine Corps up to 6 months early so that you can go straight into that school. So I did. So I applied to what's called Musicians Institute in Hollywood. I got in and I got out 2 months early. I was slated to get out of the Marine Corps in June of 2007, but I got out in March, my bad. I got it in March, so 3 months early.
Mm-hmm.
And I went straight into Musicians Institute, and then music has been a part of my life ever since. It's never been 100% a part of my life yet, which is where I'm trying to get now. But it's always been there, and so
it's been that beacon pulling you pretty much. No matter how much you try to fight it, it's like you do 1,000 things, and guess who's still there looking at you like, hey. On the music side of the house, what would you say, or who would you say, are your biggest influences musically that have influenced, you, motivated you? So it's 2 parts, right? So I'd say that one being there, and I guess in the beginning, who would you look up to say, I want to be kind of like that, right? Because you may have inspiration, and then there's like, I want to kind of be like this person. So on those 2 fronts, what are your musical influences and motivators?
My biggest influence as of today and for the longest time has been Tank. So Tank is a famous R&B singer-songwriter. He influences me musically and also as a person. One of the reasons why I've looked up to him since I've discovered him was he's not only a super talented songwriter, super talented R&B singer, but he's also just a good guy. He's now married, has kids, but he set the example of how to be a good man for a woman. My mom raised me on chivalry. She raised me to be a gentleman. She raised me to respect women. She raised me that a woman's needs come before yours when you're in a relationship. So I'm one of those old school, super romantic, white picket fence, want to get married and have kids type of guys. And Tank was not only, or is not only, a good artist as a recording artist, but he's also a good person. He's, like I said, he's now married, has kids. He's a good guy when he's not doing music. He's just a good person, and he's a good example, almost like a father figure, and if you want to look at it that way, for me. So I looked at him not only as an idol in the music industry, but also as like the example of how do I become a good man, a good husband, a good father. And I looked up to him for that. And then musically, I also looked up to Boyz II Men. Boyz II Men was probably the first, it was the first concert that I ever went to. My older brother, when I was in elementary school or junior high, took me to my first concert in Rancho Cucamonga, and it was a Boyz II Men concert. And I looked up to Boyz II Men a lot when I was younger, like the younger years of my life, growing up, junior high, high school age. And then like artists like Omarion, Usher, all the great R&B artists that were out between like the early 2000s and now is who I grew up listening to. But Tank was probably the number one. Yeah.
If you could do a collaboration with any artist, dead or alive, what would be your top 3?
Tank one for sure. Probably Michael Jackson. and then Brandy on the female side. I think Brandy is one of the best female recording artists in R&B that's alive today. And so I definitely want to do one with Tank, Brandy, and Michael for sure.
So we've established, obviously, your affinity towards R&B, your influences there. What would be a fun fact, little known fact that people may not know that musically you like, which is completely off the reservation? So we're out of R&B now. What would people not believe that is in, I don't want to, I was about to date myself and say what's in your CD in your car. We don't have that anymore. But what would be a track in your playlist that folks may not know? So if there's like 100, songs in your Go playlist, there's like two songs in there that people are like, wait a second, what are these songs doing here? What would be that one or two that folks would not know, that's completely like not R&B genre for you?
Right. So, little known fact about me, people in my circle know this, but I did Polynesian dancing as a teenager. So when I was in junior high, my best friend, his name was Jared, and his dad was a Polynesian, and his whole family, they were a mixed family as well, but his dad was Polynesian mixed with Polynesian. And so they did luau's. So they were one of those family-owned businesses where you could hire them to come to like your birthday party, your wedding.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They would put on an entire like 2-hour long luau, and they would do all the Hawaiian dances and things like that. And they would visit all the different islands and show you all the different dances from the different cultures within the Polynesian world. And I became one of those dancers. So, because I would always go to Jared's house to hang out. We would watch TV, play video games. And Jared's dad was like, hey, have you ever danced anything in your life? And I was like, no, I'm a little kid going to school.
Right, and like,
so he introduced me to their company and what they do. And Jared actually was a part of it. And so, long story short, I ended up dancing with them. And I ended up learning all about the Hawaiian culture, about the Polynesian culture. And I ended up falling in love with it. So from then on, even up till now, I love Polynesian music. So much, in fact, that this is crazy, and I still don't know how I do it today. This is a testament to the power of the human brain. But the main person that I listen to in Hawaiian music is this guy named Justin Young. Okay. He used to go by Justin Kawika Young, but now he just goes by Justin Young. And he had multiple albums back in the early 2000s that I grew up listening to in that genre. And they're in Hawaiian. I don't speak Hawaiian, but I can sing every single word of every single song and the entire album as if I'm fluent in that language. And to this, I have no idea, other than I think it might have just been repetition. Because I listened to it so many times. You know how you do something so many times, it just gets ingrained in your head, it becomes muscle memory. I think that might have played a part, but I can literally sing every song on that album in Polynesian as if I speak Hawaiian, but I don't. And
it's like the Korean bop type, right? Like you see a lot of those like Asian artists, Asian fans, and they'll sing verbatim a song, but they can't speak a lick of English, and you see that where you're like, okay, when you're singing, I'm with you, but outside of the song, I ain't got nothing for you.
That's crazy, right?
Well. So now because you have, the sweet mic going on, and we hear, and you're sounding crisp. Give us one line for those out there that are like, man, I want to hear him say something. I want to hear him sing something in that Hawaiian, from the track there. Top of your head, do you have a line?
I can't. No, it's one of those things where it's like
it comes to you.
Yeah, like I have to be listening to the song,
and you're going.
Just like, it'll just come out. But if I'm not actually listening to one of the records, I'm just like
it's in your subconscious.
Right. Yeah. Like a little switch. It's weird.
But so there's a great point that we talked about before, which is going back now, and I appreciate you sharing that because again, I think that's good for people to know and get context behind, just your influences, the things you like, and the fun facts that people wouldn't know about you. So you go from service and you went to study, and we talked about this on our live, which I think is powerful, which is you began to study your craft. You
Right.
use your benefits, you use your service. So for all intents and purposes, you had a plan, right? You know, good upbringing, go to service, did your thing, different things you did in
Right.
service. I'm gonna do music. I'm finally gonna give into it. Got out a little bit early. I'm gonna learn my
Yeah.
craft. I'm gonna go to school to do this because again,
Right.
education is not what people think. It's, are you using something that benefits you? And in your case, you went to you know, that higher education there specifically to learn your craft and music, understand the
Right.
nuances, the behind the scenes. What would you share for someone out there who may be seeing this, you know, who may not make that connection to where it's not just I'm gonna go to school and become an accountant now, or I want to take, like, no, that's not what you did. You did something that made sense to you. Talk to me a
Right.
little bit about, for those that don't know, what are some of the highlight things that folks wouldn't know, right? Because someone's thinking like, you went to music school, what did you do, play a harmonica? Like, no, there's an actual business behind the
Oh yeah.
industry. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the school that I went to was Musicians Institute, and there's a number of schools that you can choose from to go to when it comes to the music industry. A lot of them are based here in the LA area, but I've heard they're all over the place, like Full Sail, things like that. And so there's an entire world when it comes to the music industry. And so when I went to school, they not only taught us how to become better recording artists, like they taught us stage presence, performing, how to pick your genres, how to do your imaging, professional photography, things like that, marketing. But they also taught us a lot about the business side of the industry, contract writing, how to not get screwed over by a contract if you get signed to a record label, how to read a contract, how to hire a lawyer, all the different nuances on the business side that had nothing to do with performance, nothing to do with the actual music. So that way you could become a successful independent artist without getting screwed over, understanding the business side of it. If you were going to start your own companies, how to start those companies, all the paperwork that goes involved, who you have to get involved. It's like a whole nother world in the music industry, just like any other business. You know, the music industry is just like, well, okay, let me give you a nugget. So one thing that I learned in that school and to this day is when you're a recording artist, you have to think of yourself as a small business owner because that's literally what it's
Mm.
compared to. Because you are a business, and I never thought of it like this until I went to school and I learned this. But I am a business. I am a brand. Elliot McKenzie is now a business. It's a brand. Hashtag R&B Vet. That's my
Mm-hmm.
hashtag on social media. That's my brand. Just like any other company, like Nike, let's just say, for example, their little swoosh, that's their brand. And so you have to think of yourself as a small business, and getting a record deal is the comparison to, or can be compared to getting like a small business loan, right? Because that's pretty much the
Mm.
equivalent. When you get a record deal and a record label says, hey, we want to sign you to a 3-year recording deal, we're going to give you, let's say, $6 million, right? That's the equivalent to you being a small business owner and you get a $6 million small business loan to start your business, because that's literally what the record label is giving you. They're giving you that $6 million not because they want you to go out and buy Ferraris with it. They want you to invest that $6 million into yourself, which is your business, your
Mm-hmm.
brand, your image, your clothing, your music, whatever it is. So that 6 million needs to be spent on recording studio time, needs to be spent on professional photo shoots, music videos, all the stuff that goes into creating your music and your image and your brand. Just like if you get a small business loan, as let's say you're opening a bakery, that
Mm-hmm.
$6 million needs to be spent on your food products, the rent for your new location, the sign that goes up on top of your business, all the business related things that you need to purchase to start that bakery
Mm-hmm.
is the same equivalent to that record label giving you 6 million, and now they want you to start your business, which is your brand as a recording artist. So I learned a lot of that from school, and then all the years I've been in the industry now, a lot of that's come to me as well. But that started back in school. So they teach you a lot of that kind of stuff, not just like how to play the harmonica or how to be a good singer or any of that. They teach you the holistic big picture of what
Yes.
you're getting yourself into and how to make that successful.
And I think that, and that's a great analogy for those that may have not known, right? Because now
Right.
for many, I'm sure it clicks and it's like, oh, wait a second, that makes a lot of sense now. Because the fact
Right.
is, the first thing you said was it's not for you to go out there and just ball out. No, it's for you to build the business of you. And
Right.
sadly, not knowing that, there are some people that miss that lesson and wind up in a world
Right.
of hurt.
Hmm.
Can you touch a little bit on with that being said and done, there are those like yourselves and the Marine Rap and a few others that are independent, right? Who
Right.
are not taking the traditional route that most would like go, and are self publishing, are self releasing, are doing things like a business, saying, hey, I'm not gonna go ahead and take that. I'm grinding. I'm gonna build it myself. I'm gonna go ahead and do it without the external influences, because the other part that comes with that small business loan is you're indebted to somebody. Someone's going to come knocking looking for you. If you're part of that label, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, here's the schedule, Elliot. Here's what we need you to do. Whereas if you are kind of the master of your own ship, I don't have to answer to nobody because I'm doing it my own. Can you talk a little bit about that journey, kind of going the independent route for those that don't know? Because they may have heard a few artists that do it, but most people think, okay, you're an artist, who you sign with? It's like there's no other way but being assigned to a specific, name label.
Right. So when it comes to getting signed or being independent, there's benefits on both sides. Like you mentioned, being independent, a couple of the examples of benefits would be self-control or control over your brand. When you're signed to a label, whether it be independent or major, oftentimes they are in control of your brand. They tell you who you can perform for, what interviews you can do, where you can go on tour, what kind of clothes to wear, et cetera, et cetera. They are in charge of your brand, and you just have to listen to what they say. But when you're independent, you control all that. Like, I decided to wear a blue shirt today. I didn't tell somebody else,
Right.
somebody else telling me, this is the wardrobe you're going to wear for this interview. No, I decided this.
Wow.
I decided to do this interview. I can do whatever performances I want. I can say yes to performances. I can say no to performances. And
can it be that detailed and that micromanaging? For those that don't know, we're literally even down to the fact of, let's just take the shirt. Like, even what you would wear for this conversation, that's something they could literally have in the contract of, you have to wear this and bling that, make sure every so often to make sure that you plug this or whatever, whatever it may be. That's the real thing.
Exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
wow.
Yeah. Especially with the really big labels, and when you're a newer artist, like if let's say you're a brand new artist, you've never had a deal before, and you're really talented, they see potential in you, they see a good opportunity to make money off of you, they're gonna control every aspect of your career. When you sign that record label deal, that record deal, it's gonna basically be you signing your life away. Like, they control your wardrobe, they control what songs you can release, they're gonna control when you release music. Like, almost every aspect of your career during the term of that first contract is going to be controlled by that label. And it's literally almost everything that you do. And a lot of up and coming newer artists don't realize that. And then going back to what I mentioned earlier with the opposite of being independent, you control everything. Like, I control everything right now. I don't have to worry about somebody telling me when I can perform, who I can perform for, what to wear at my performances, what lyrics to put in my songs, which songs go in my albums and which songs don't, which songs I can release and which songs get thrown away, et cetera, et cetera. So there's benefits to being signed and there's benefits to not. The benefits to being signed would probably have to do with marketing more than anything else. When you get signed to a major label or to a very large indie label, one of the benefits you get is they have a lot of connections to media and they can really get your name out there. And that's the biggest thing that a lot of up and coming artists go for with those labels. They think, okay, if I get signed to a giant label, that giant label is going to help make me famous, which is partially true. Because when you get a big record deal and if you do well with them and you don't get shelved, which is a whole separate conversation, they will market the crap out of you and they'll put your name out there. They'll book you for all these different concerts to get you performances. And yeah, more than likely you will either blow up or you'll get way more famous than you were when you started. Yeah. Which is I would say that's the biggest benefit to getting signed to a big label, is just the marketing that comes with it, and the fact that from where you're going to end up is going to be a lot bigger than where you started. If the label invests that into you because they see that potential with you. Because like I said, there's a whole separate conversation we can have about getting shelved at a label. But if you're not shelved and you do well with them, they will help you become famous, which is what all of us want, because the more fans you get, the more money you make off your brand, is that's your income. But that can also happen on the independent side. You know what I mean? It's a lot harder on the independent side because you're doing all your own marketing. You're paying for all your own ad campaigns and all that stuff. When if you're signed, the label might be paying for all those huge ad campaigns and TV commercials and marketing on social media and stuff. They're paying for all that because that stuff costs money as well, and that's what part of that budget goes to. So it's a lot more challenging on the independent side to make your name a household name, but it's still possible. I've seen and I know recording artists who are household names or who are very big in the industry, who are completely independent like myself. It took them longer to get to where they are, but they got there and they still have room to grow. Just like myself, I'm nowhere near a household name right now. And that's the goal, because I think my brand is great and I want to be able to get my message out there and heard by as many people as possible. It's going to take me a little bit longer on the independent side, but I think you have to sit and, do that like, is it worth it kind of thing. And for me, them having so much control, if I got signed by a major or a big independent, it's just not worth it for me, because I know my brand now and I know myself and I know what I want out of my career. I don't see myself going to a major label. The only way I would take a record deal at this point is if I got signed by a label that would basically give me creative control, which is very unlikely because I've never been signed before. And to them, in their vision, I'm a new artist because I've never had a record deal. I'm not famous. I haven't had that big experience yet.
Yes.
So they're looking at me like a brand new artist off the street, even though I've been doing this for years. I have an album out. I have experience. And so more than likely, they're going to come at me with like, oh, we want creative control. And nope, sorry, you're not going to get it. Yes. So it's just one of those battles you got to do in your head. What matters to me as an artist more than anything.
No, and I think that thank you for that, because I think it just helps to explain for those that don't know, because as consumers, right, people just consume the information versus the creator side and kind of being able to peek behind the screen. I think that really helps. So, being able to put all that together, I want to pivot now to the point where most folks are saying, but everything is copacetic, Ellie. Like, good upbringing, right? You have your call into music, you left service early. So where exactly is the things that kind of crazy? And I think it's really more, I wanted to make sure that we paint this picture to really hone in on the power that people neglect that is mental health, and what that can do to someone, and how, regardless of everything being copacetic, regardless of where you may come from or your ambitions, you had a plan, you had a calling, you knew what you were going to do. In the middle of all that, if we don't talk about the negative, man, everything is amazing, everything is great. Right. Not so quick. Talk to me now about what people may not know, which is, like I said, hey, you answered and added context for others of what we talked about, but now where does the homelessness kick in, and that part where you left service, and again, back to the mental health side, which we touched on, which kind of spiraled. Talk to me about that, in parallel, while all these other things that you plan to do and what you wanted to do, leave service early, go to school, learn these things, but pump the brakes if someone came a knock and called mental health PTSD. Talk to me about that transition period.
So while all this positive stuff has been happening, the entire time since about 2007, when my PTSD started and all my issues started, it's always been there. It might have been in the background. I might have been hiding it very well. Maybe when I was in front of an audience, I seemed okay. But maybe after that 25, 30, 45-minute concert, I went and I cried in my car for 45 minutes. Maybe I got off stage and I had an anxiety attack behind closed doors after the show was over. So homelessness happened in 2007 and 2008. So this story's been told on the news. It's been told everywhere. So I'll just tell you like it is. So like I said, I didn't know that I had PTSD until 2007, when that volcano decided to erupt. And the way that it erupted was through anger issues. So I started noticing in early 2007 that I was more irritable. I had a very, very short fuse. People would piss me off by simply bumping into me at the grocery store, like accidentally bumping my shoulder. I'd want to fight that person.
Boom.
Complete stranger, boom, going off, right? What happened was I was at home getting ready for a job that I had. I was getting dressed for work, and me and my older brother got into a verbal argument in the living room. Can't remember what the argument was about, but it was about something. Started screaming at each other, started yelling, and then my anger just kicked in, and I grabbed a kitchen knife, like one of those really big kitchen knives from the kitchen, and I started threatening with it. I started brandishing it like I was going to stab him with it. Never stabbed him, but I ended up throwing it at him and walking out of the house. My mom comes out of her bedroom, because it was just the three of us in the household at that time. My mom comes out during the middle of that fight, us screaming and yelling at each other. She doesn't know what to do. She's freaking out because she's a really small woman, tiny. My brother's like 6'2", I'm 5'9", and I was big. And she calls the police because she doesn't know what else to do, how else to handle the situation. It's not getting any easier. She just sees us, the intensity is just rising. It's not decreasing. So the police arrive. I get put in handcuffs. And luckily, I'm so grateful for this guy today. I still want to go over to the police department and see if he's still working there, see if I can somehow get a hold of him, but to thank him. But he was an Army veteran, and he was a sergeant in the department for that police department. And he goes, okay, I'm going to give you two options. I'm going to I can treat you like a civilian, and I can have you arrested and charged with assault with a deadly weapon for throwing the knife, because that's a deadly weapon and that counts as ADW. And so, or I know you're a veteran. I know you just got out of the Marine Corps recently. I was in the Army, and I think you might have some issues that need to be worked out. I can tell that I talked to your mom. Your mom says there's been some issues going on since you got out of the military, and so I feel like I can take you to the VA and have them talk to you and see if they can give you some help for your mental illness. I was like, I'll take option B. Yeah. So they drove me. He went out of his way. He didn't have to do this at all. He drove me to the VA, never put it on my record. The detainment was never put on my record or anything like that. And they drove me to the VA, and the VA put me on a 5150 hold for 3 days. And that's when I found out I had PTSD. They were like, yeah, you've got this, you've got that, you've got anger issues, you've got all these issues. And that's when I realized, oh crap, okay, my life is about to change. And ever since then, the mental illness has been there. And it's been depression. It's come in the form of anxiety. It's come in the form of hyper awareness. It's been a whole laundry list of issues that's consistently been in the background whenever I'm doing anything I'm doing. And it was interesting that you mentioned the fact that, all this great stuff's happening, the music, the concerts, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people now know through my story as well that the music is actually one of my forms of medicine for my issues. So fast forward to a number of years later, I started seeing a therapist, and this therapist started asking me about my history. Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about who you were. And I told her that I was a musician. I told her about singing, drumming, all that kind of stuff. And she taught me about how music is therapeutic. And she said, you can use your abilities to sing as therapy. And I was like, what? Well, no, I've never thought of it like that. So she educated me, because she was an educated therapist, and she educated me about the biology of the brain and endorphins and adrenaline, and how getting that out of your brain when you're performing, and that nervous tick that you get before you go on stage, it's actually your brain releasing endorphins. She taught me about all that, and she said you can utilize that as a form of therapy, because when you release endorphins and adrenaline, you're combating your PTSD and your depression primarily. And she said, tell me this. She said, when you get off stage after you perform, don't you get like a big adrenaline rush and you feel happy and you're excited and you're all energetic? And I was like, yeah. She's like, guess what that is? That's your brain releasing adrenaline and endorphins, and that's counteracting your depression. And she said, you can use that. And so I started using that, and that's what I do now. Up until this day, I've just been using the music not only as a form of expression through the songwriting and getting things off my chest, but also biologically. That thrill that I get from performing live, that energy that I get from performing live, it's literally saving my life every single time I do it. Every single time I write a song about something that's bothering me, it's like talking to a therapist, except the microphone is my therapist. Every time I do a concert or I do a live performance, it literally gives me that adrenaline rush that literally combats my depression. And so it's been there. The mental illness has been there, but I use the music as a way to fight it.